The Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA, has ordered the SABC to withdraw the decision not to broadcast violent protest footage. Earlier, SABC lawyer claimed that ICASA had no power to reverse the SABC's decision to ban coverage of violent protests. Opposition parties and media groups criticized SABC Chief Operating Officer Claudio Motseneng's May decision, where he argued that showing footage of the destruction of public property would encourage such actions. SABC Board Chair will write to ICASA within 7 days to confirm the implementation of ICASA's decision. Now, joining us with more in the ICASA situation is spokesperson Paseka Maleka. Thank you so much for joining us, Paseka, on the issue. Could you just tell us what is ICASA's role at this point concerning the SABC?
Well, thank you so much, Nandi. ICASA is a regulator of the broadcasting industry, not only broadcasting but telecommunications and postal services as well. So this issue was of importance to us. Hence, it was sent to us as a complaint, which was lodged through to us via the Complaints and Compliance Committee on the 1st of June 2016.
Now, it's said that ICASA can influence or rather overturn the decision for the SABC to relinquish the censorship of violent protests. Well,
ICASA had to look into the matter because it was brought before the Complaints and Compliance Committee and then dealt with on an urgent basis. So this matter was definitely dealt with in that case, and then it went through a number of processes in terms of the CCC, just to make sure that we investigate and adjudicate properly on this particular matter. Hence, we have reached this particular decision on this day.
Now, will ICASA only be dealing with the SABC's complaints, or will it somehow take part in the possible suspension of some of the journalists that voice their opinion about the state of SABC at the moment?
Obviously, ICASA cannot be party to issues around the suspension of journalists because it's a labor relations matter which the SABC is supposed to be dealing with on their own through their own processes. But in terms of this particular complaint, it was important for ICASA to look into it because the complainants based their case on the legal question of whether the SABC has overstepped its powers as set out in the Broadcasting Act and the license conditions. So that's why we have to look into this matter, because we also look into issues around what the Constitution says in terms of Section 6 and Section 192. And we also looked into the actual license conditions of the SABC, what they mean, and how are we supposed to look into this particular matter.
Now, concerning going back to the Constitution, what position does ICASA take when it comes to the complaints regarding the censorship of the or rather the protests, etc., that are being not shown on the television sets of every South African? What position can ICASA or rather, what can ICASA do at this very moment? Because we all know it's a lengthy procedure, but what roles can, or what rather activities can ICASA put into place at the moment?
Well, for now, with regard to this particular matter, what we are saying is that we have endorsed the decision by the Complaints and Compliance Committee to say we are now directing the SABC to withdraw its resolution as published in its statement of the 26th of May. And we say that the SABC will no longer broadcast charge of destruction of public property during protests. And also what we are saying is that this withdrawal must be done retrospectively from the date when the actual resolution took place. And we also looked into this because it's important to note that the broadcasting, the SABC has got a number of obligations in terms of the Broadcasting Act and its license conditions. One of the things that the Broadcasting Act imposes on the SABC is an obligation to provide coverage of significant news and public affairs programming, which meet the highest standard of journalism, as well as fair and unbiased coverage, impartiality, balance, and independence from government and other interests. So those are the basics that we looked into that made us to come to this decision to say the SABC must definitely withdraw its resolution and start broadcasting the news in a fair, impartial, balanced, and unbiased manner.
Well, thank you very much. That was spokesperson Paseka Maleka from ICASA. Now, Director of Media Monitoring Africa, William Bird, joins us on the line as well. Thank you very much, William Bird, for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the program.
Well, thank you for joining us. Now, William, obviously it's quite a touchy situation from a media specialist point of view. Now, not so long ago, Thuli Madonsela did say that, or rather had given SABC remedial action, not only concerning the SABC state, but also with that of Hlaudi Musaneng. And a lot of people have come out saying, he's not fit to run the SABC as a COO on that matter. How is this affecting the decisions that he's making at the moment?
So look, I think that to begin with, I don't think it's appropriate that the COO is making these kind of editorial decisions. And the fact that he's made one, and one that was so clearly and blatantly censorship, and as proven by today's ruling, shows that let alone his current mandate, he's exceeded his mandate. He's brought the organisation into disrepute. He's violated the trust of the public. He's attacked our constitution and the mandate of the SABC. Somewhere along the line he needs to be held accountable. But not only for this particular action, but I think it's critical that we look again to the board, which also equally have failed in their mandate and in their fiduciary duties. And we need to criticise Parliament Portfolio Committee as well for doing the same, for failing in their duties. So in as much as it's a vindication for media freedom and rationality, it's also an abject failure by the SABC board and their senior management. And this is a day of great shame and humiliation for them.
Now, speaking about the Constitution and the censorship around the reporting of news, and that is fair and balanced, how is Hlaudi, or the SABC rather, offending the Constitution when it comes to the actual censorship itself? What does the Constitution say about journalists being able to report what they work so hard to put on our screens, on our radios, on our newspapers and magazines, etc.?
So look, the simple case is this, is that what you want is for journalists to go out there and tell us what's happening in the world, right? And you want that, and where possible, you want to get relevant images of that you can use to accompany and help explain a story. What the effect of the ludicrous decision was to say, if you're in a scenario where there might be some public violence, you're not even allowed to film it. So it wasn't as though it was a nuanced editorial decision. It was a blanket, effectively a prior restraint on any of the kind of material that we would expect to see. And in doing that, you necessarily undermine the right to freedom of expression, because you're saying we're not going to allow this and this. Now, there is a limitations clause in our Constitution, but it's under very particular and very specific conditions, because the Constitution and the people that drafted it understood the value of media freedom and the importance of media to a democratic state.
Well, thank you very much. That was the Director of Media Monitoring Africa, William Bird, who joined us on the line.